Hi there, it's Marla at Narrate. To wrap up the God Has a Name series, Adam connects with 3 people and asks them the question of why do they follow Jesus. In the 11:30 gathering, he visits with Roxanne Shockley, Jeff Hewitt, and Kelsey Tomrup. Enjoy!
Hey, good morning. It's really great to see you. Oh, I got to get your chairs. So if you don't get emails from me, that's okay, but that would mean that you're maybe a little out of the loop on this weekend. We're doing something a little bit different. Jeff, did you bring a chair? Oh, look at that.
You had it with him.
Is it this one?
No.
You got it. Oh, nice job. So there's X marks the spot. There you go. Oh, no. This is how type A we are. Let me teach you something. No. There's a spot. There you go. So let me just let these guys introduce themselves in just a second, but in case you're in the dark on this, let me take just a moment and kind of explain what I would like to accomplish this weekend. One of the privileges that I have from what I do and where I sit is I'm constantly meeting people like many of you and having these conversations that for me are pretty humbling because the realization is that you all go to work on Monday and feed yourselves and you volunteer on Sundays. And there's this pretty awesome thing that there's this astounding community of people who care deeply about this place. And I get to hear lots of your stories, but not everyone else does. And so semi-subconsciously for the last few years, one of the things that's rattled around in my head is I wonder why they follow Jesus. Like, I wonder why they follow Jesus. And this series brought that out in me all the more, this realization of, listen, I absolutely believe in orthodoxy, and I want to stand with the church fathers and mothers and recognize that we stand on the shoulders of men and women who stood on the shoulders of men and women with our faith tradition, but also want to recognize that life circumstances and backgrounds and myriad other things kind of collide to create our own unique experiences and compelling reasons why we follow Jesus. And so put that in front of the creative team, who incidentally were many of the people at the 8:30 that we interviewed, and they came up with this idea of what if we grab a few people from many of the different teams that serve around here, and we can't do everybody, at least not in one weekend, but we can start these conversations. And so one of the dangers is that we create a who's who. It's one of the dangers of doing something like this that, those of you on teams who aren't up here, that we somehow have passively slighted you, and that's certainly not my intent. But it is to create a conversation where we can recognize what it means to be a faith community together. So that's a mouthful. I also have a lot of caffeine in me because my intake has surpassed my output today because I haven't had to work as hard. So maybe we just start with, we'll just start with you, Roxanne, and just tell us your name, and then tell us what you do on Monday morning. How do you feed your family, so to speak?
What do I do on Monday morning?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Roxanne, and on Monday morning, I have the distinct pleasure of following my life's passion of teaching children. I teach 7th grade at Helena Middle School, and I taught 6th grade last year, so I have some of the same students again, and it's just a pleasure to be with them throughout the day. So that's what I do.
Sweet. At HMS.
At HMS.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Go Bobcats.
I'm Kelsey, and during the week I'm a paraprofessional at Jefferson Elementary School, and so I wrangle lots of kindergartners.
Of the Tomrup clan.
Yeah.
She was on the video last week.
I'm Jeff, and
you're not on.
He's not on.
Look at this. I need to be babied up here. Yeah, well.
Amateur
You're
hour.
Oh, there we go.
I knew when I got dressed this morning, I was like, Jeff is going to outdress me. I knew it.
There
You know what? I was just looking across the crowd, and I was thinking, we have a good-looking congregation. So, I'm Jeff, and I do online retail. And I want to thank everybody for foregoing Thanksgiving and putting my Amazon sales through the roof.
And then part of the plan was to do this little experiment with, bring your own camp chair, and we thought that would break the ice. But so if one of you had a compelling reason for why your chair, we could talk about that, or we could just skip it. Because that's a pretty awesome chair, Kelsey. I've had chair envy since I saw that. Because backpacking, that thing would be awesome.
Yeah, it's the most comfortable chair.
Do you own it, or did you borrow it from your brother-in-law?
I own it.
You do. Because I borrow his backpacking stuff every time I go. That's why I'm asking.
I do borrow the backpack when we go.
Okay, so Roxanne, why do you follow Jesus?
Oh my gosh. So I was thinking about this question a lot, and, I do work with 7th graders, and so one of the first things that came to my mind when I thought of this question was, why do I follow Jesus? I'm like, well, just like a 7th grader would say, I would say, Jesus is legit. He's like, he is legit. Like, he's following him, and, the way he cares about people, whether they're rich or they're poor, they're, whatever they believe, he's right there loving on them. And that's something that I would just love to be able to do myself. And so to emulate his heart and to emulate who he is just a wonderful way to live life, living life as though Jesus is living through me, and hoping that I can have that kind of effect on somebody else the way Jesus has an effect on me. So, yeah.
There's a lot there. We're going to come back to some of that stuff. But Kelsey, how about for you? Let me ask this. Were you raised in the church?
I was raised in the church.
Okay.
Actually, my mom has this saying, and she would always tell me, you were in church 9 months before you were born. And so, I've always known church. I've always known church and known God since before I was born.
Yeah,
So.
okay.
Yeah, so I grew up in the church and raised by loving parents who raised me in the church. And so I guess it kind of started there with coming to the realization that I believed that the Bible was true. Mm-hmm. And so it seemed natural to follow Jesus. And then later in life, just realizing that following Jesus gave me purpose and meaning in my life. And also, with all the uncertainties in life, gives me peace in knowing him.
Well, Adam, I was raised in the church also, a little Baptist church in Townsend, Montana. But I thought about this question, and I got to tell you, I would admit I follow Jesus' teachings. Yes, absolutely. But when I thought about it, Adam, I thought to say you follow Jesus implies a separation. Like Jesus is here, and I am here, and I follow Jesus. And I think I understand what you're saying. You mean Jesus' teachings. But when I thought about that, I wanted to be abundantly clear that I don't think Jesus is there and that I am here and that we follow Jesus. I feel like Jesus works in us and with us and through us. And so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. So when Jeff, for you said you were raised in a little Baptist church, like what was the compelling... I'm assuming there was a season of like, my parents believe that, so I believe it. What's the compelling why? Like, why are you here today, not somewhere else? I don't mean narrate. I mean associating yourself with a community that connects themselves to Jesus. Like, what was the catalyst? We did not rehearse, by the way. So it's a giant spot these guys are sitting on.
Sure. And I think that that you're, in a part of you knows that you're supposed to be following Jesus. And I think I definitely got away from that. And everything seems to be going well since I've come back to that. Now, admittedly, there are things from my childhood that I don't necessarily agree with.
Sure.
And I think that's one thing that drew me to Narrate.
Because I think my kids are going to agree with everything that they're growing up with.
Right, exactly.
Totally. Yeah, that's fair. Kelsey, how about you? Because you, again, like raised in the church, you mean kind of the American story. So when did it transition from Jerry and Daryl's faith to yours?
I think I went through like a pretty traumatic loss when I was in high school. And so when I went off to college, I was kind of like questioning, and I began serving with Young Life, and it became something that I wanted to do for my own. And I guess that's kind of when you have to make the decision for yourself, because you're not going to church anymore because your parents are bringing you, and so that's kind of when it became mine, I guess.
So the process of serving with Young Life was the big catalyst?
Yeah,
wow.
That, and combined with going through that experience of losing a loved one, and then all that together, and kind of realizing that that's what I wanted for my life.
But it's interesting that for you it kept you in, where for lots of people it pushes them out.
Yeah.
Like tragedy, heartache. Do you have any sense for why did it draw you closer, not push you further?
Well, I think I was fortunate to have, my parents and other people in my life who, wanted me to stay that path and believed that I could even through that. And so that was a big part of it. And then, but it wasn't right away. Like, yeah, that's fine. I'll keep following Jesus. I mean, there was questioning, and I mean, I wouldn't say I ever stopped following Jesus, but there was definitely a time of struggle and questioning.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't say at the beginning either, just to kind of place them. Roxanne and Jeff teach large group to elementary on Sundays. Kelsey is of the formidable Mike and Kelsey task force that serves high school students at their house on Tuesday nights. So just to kind of create some placement. How about for you, Roxanne?
So I was thinking about this. So when I was married, and you leave your parents' house or whatever, and then you kind of make that decision of whether you're going to keep doing what you've always done. And then there was a period of time, Troy and I, we went to church, of course, but I mean, then when we moved, and it was hard to find a church family, and I noticed in the moments of not being connected in a church, I was feeling kind of lost, and so like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm not getting the same food for my soul that I would get on a Sunday morning, being connected with others, being connected through people who are going through situations, or even just kind of getting some support. And so just knowing that, and I kind of like what Kelsey said, I've never really kind of not followed Jesus or gone astray or anything like that, but I've been in periods of times where I've not been connected, and I've noticed there's like a big, like, I don't know about a hole in my heart. I mean, I don't know about that, but it's very noticeable when I don't have that connection, and when I don't have those like-minded people going through life with me. And then, of course, I'm just going to steal your answer if that's all right. So, like, when you're going through something tough and you have those, not that it was always easy. I struggled. I had questions. We got, you get startling health news and you get really angry, and you're just like, what is going on here? Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to our family? And, it's very, and for God to stick with me through that is kind of like, okay, you love me even though I question you, or I get really angry at you, and he doesn't get offended if I get angry at him or something like that. So, and it's kind of like the song we just sang about, my fear of him and his anger, kind of like what we've been talking about, putting him in my pocket. That's not who God is. And so coming to realize that is always, kind of been, how I connect with him. So.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so going through something that's struggling and still being able to have him come right alongside you and be like, I got this with you, you're going to be fine, I have plans for you even though you don't know what they are yet. And then you come to realize them years later, and then you're like, oh man, I was such a jerk for asking those questions and I didn't realize, but then it's like, well, it's okay, I got this. So, yeah.
Wow. So Jeff, when would you say you feel the strongest connection with Jesus? Like, what are the activities that make that connection the best for you?
I feel a strong connection with Jesus around, believe it or not, water. I get out on the lake or on the ocean. I'm a sailor. And
Navy guy.
Yeah, and the ocean's so vast when it's perfectly still. Or, contrary to that, when it's so rough that waves are crashing over the entire 350-foot ship. And, or at the lake. Same thing, the calm, or, soaking in the tub, or the broad water, sitting in the hot springs, it's the stillness, it's the peacefulness.
And where do the thoughts come from in that season? I mean, are you able to kind of check out? Are you meditating on something specific? Like what's happening mentally? Because I sat in the broadwater for a long time yesterday, and most of the time I was like, I'm bored.
Sure. And I can see that from you.
And I'm not in any way trying to trivialize you.
Sure.
I was like, what did I read this morning? What can I think about here? I'm going crazy.
Sure. Well, imagine a mountain, and the clouds are your thoughts, and you're the mountain, and the thoughts move past you, right? So I kind of allow thoughts to just come and go. Sure.
I admire your tranquility there. That's awesome.
Sure. Well, I don't get a lot of it, so I take it when I can get it.
Fair enough. Kelsey, when do you feel like you connect best?
So a couple places or
other than
times.
when Mikey's singing to you or something.
Right. Definitely. when it's quiet, when I'm outside, or even just a quiet morning on the couch, that's a good connection. But I also feel connected when I'm able to serve and build relationships, especially with the students. Like after a good conversation or something with one of them, where I feel like I just feel so blessed that like I'm able to be part of their lives and part of, So it always makes me feel connected to God.
That makes sense. What you don't know is the word on the street is Kelsey she is a legend in conversation with students. So you downplay that, but you're very, very good at it. So it's cool to know that it's reciprocal. How about for you, Roxanne?
So again, I have some of what Kelsey was saying is very true for me as well. The serving aspect, I always feel connected to God when I'm serving, whether it be a serving project we do here at Narrate, whether I'm serving students at school, whether I'm spending my weekend putting together a project for kids at school or something like that. I always feel like connected to God because I feel like that's who God is. He serves others. And so when I get a chance to do that, I always feel connected to him. But I also feel connected to him when I'm parenting, So, like, I get to parent, an amazing little girl. But I also feel like, some of the things you go through as a parent, I feel like Jesus went through as he was leading disciples, like you're trying to get somewhere on time to teach this sermon, but you got to stop and tie your, Peter's got to tie his shoe or something. And I'm trying to get somewhere, and Elizabeth's got to stop and tie her shoe or get all her stuff together. So I feel like I can connect to Jesus on that way when you're trying to wrangle a bunch of, 25 seventh graders into doing this project, and he's trying to wrangle, 12 disciples to get through the desert, and I'm just like, same thing. So I always feel connected when I get to, either parent or teach or serve or, but I also kind of like what Jeff was saying about the water. I'm not a good swimmer. I'm not a good, if I'm in the water, I'm probably on a boat hoping I don't fall in. But I do, when I'm out there, I kind of agree with you where you're just looking out at this vastness of God's creation and you're like, God created all of this and then he thought to create me. It's like that's real. That's a connection.
So I'm going to put you on the spot because you shared something that you say to Elizabeth all the time when we talked at the coffee shop.
Sure, yeah.
Will you share that with him? Because I just thought that was genius.
You're going to have to remind me.
Well, the whole that you're, how would you say that? Your mom said it to you like, I love you, but not as much as Jesus.
Oh, yeah. So my mom, when I was growing up, I said it to Elizabeth. So I always told Elizabeth that I love you, but not as much as, Jesus loves you more than I do, if you can understand that. And, she's getting old enough now where she probably could, but when she was little, she was like, "Nuh-uh, Mommy, you love me the most in the whole wide world." And I said, well, yes, but Jesus loves you just a tad bit more. And I'm right there nipping at his heels, I'm right there behind him, loving you as much. And so to have Jesus love you that much more than a parent would, and you think about your parents' love and you think about the love you give your children, that Jesus could give more than that's pretty amazing. And so so now it's one of the things we say, I love you, but not as much as Jesus. So yeah, it's pretty amazing.
What season of life, because to me this is a fascinating conversation because I wasn't necessarily raised in the church, but I'm raising kids who are raised in the church. Sure. And what season of life did you guys go okay, this is mine. This is not just, and maybe I'm being redundant, but just curious, what season of life were you in when you owned your faith, when you made it your own? I'll let you answer in your own order. I mean, you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of already shared when I was in college, and that's when you're on your own. You're not being forced. Not that I ever felt like I was being forced, but
sure,
it's
but you
truly
were being forced.
Especially in my freshman
like you're
year.
Coming to church, right?
Yeah. My freshman year of college, I didn't have a car, and so it was really I ended up going to a church that was in Belgrade, so I had to plan to get somebody to drive me there every week, and that was wow, this must matter.
Right. Yeah.
If I'm going to do that, and choosing to serve, through Young Life, even when that's not something that I was being told to do.
Right.
Oh, well, what, a year and a half ago?
Huh.
Yeah.
So for you, which you were in your 30s then?
Yeah, 37, 36, somewhere in there.
I was thinking like 25.
That's
but
encouraging.
okay.
And
No. I've known.
I
I think that I've always, I was raised in church, so I'm always aware. But the question would become, when did I embrace it? And that was, that short of a time ago.
Sure.
But I'm kind of a guy that's all in or all out. So
Right.
I decided to just, push the chips all in. So
it's both encouraging and discouraging as a parent, though, to know that that's the reality.
yeah.
How about for you, Roxanne? What season would you say you were in?
So it's a unique situation because, I grew up in the church, and then I didn't go to college right away, but when I did, it was a couple years after high school. It was a Christian college, so I was surrounded by like-minded people there again, and so I didn't really... It was probably right about the time, we got some devastating health news, and then I was pregnant with Elizabeth. She was a very high-risk pregnancy, very, tumultuous time, and so it was very, we lived, and I don't ever felt like we were alone. My parents lived in Montana, but we were in Texas, and not that they would do anything in the world for us, but, we were, physically, it was Troy and myself going through this, this situation, and the first thing Troy would always say is, we're going to pray about this, we're going to pray about this, we're going to pray about this. And I'd be like, I don't want to pray about this. But he would be like, he'd be right there saying, there's a reason for this. We'd pray together. We would call on our families. We would call on our church friends and things like that. So I really think, going through something like that and then having a support of people around you, family or not, just knowing that God put these people in place to help me through this, this situation. And so if he's going to support me through this, then clearly he loves me, and then I need to focus on what his plan is for my life, even though now it's significantly different than what I thought it was going to be. So
Sure.
I think right about, if I had to pinpoint it, it's kind of hard because I've always, like I said, I've always not followed Jesus, but I've had situations test that, and so to come out on the other side of Jesus still loving us and still walking through life with us is very hopeful.
So what, and I'm going to ask Kelsey this first, but I'd love for you all to speak to it. What's something that your parents did, related to Jesus growing up, that you were like, but now, ironically, should you have kids, you'll definitely do it to your kids?
Maybe Dad should have stayed hunting.
Right, you hated it at the time, but now you're like, I'm so glad that they did that.
Okay, so we used to have these family fun nights. And I think I liked it, but also thought it was the weirdest thing of all time, because they went to the Christian bookstore and got this book that was a family devotional, but it also had activities. And I always thought it was really weird at the time. I don't know if I would do it exactly like that, but I think...
What were the activities? You got to give
I know, we need more.
I'm dying now. You cut out snowflakes, or what did you do?
No, they were super spiritual.
Okay.
I don't remember all of them, but they were just super cheesy, spiritual type of activities that you would do together, and then it would tie into some sort of a biblical lesson. But I think that being said, we did lots of other activities that weren't like that, and it just set up this bond that made me trust them and know that it was fun. It was fun to be a follower of Jesus, and it was fun to be with your family, and so I probably would do that with my kids.
Well, ironically, it was the whole idea that you guys are having meals together on Tuesday.
Yeah.
It sounds related. That was your idea, and it was your observation that a lot of high school students don't ever get that.
And that comes from my family too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds related.
When I first got married, my dad found out that we sometimes ate in front of the TV. I think he about had a heart attack.
Jeff, how about for you? What's something that you loathed, but now you're you value it?
Oh, Adam. You want to talk about some of the most uncomfortable times, heart-to-heart talks. I don't think my parents who were right there, I don't do well in heart-to-heart talks. I still don't to this day. But I think I embrace them more now, when my kids are being like crazy, which is all the time. And I'm like...
I think Desiree objects to that comment.
I'm like, listen, this is the way it goes. This is the way it is, and important conversations of like, I know that you're getting punished, but understand that we love you and that this is going to help you. But see, growing up, I hated those talks. Sure. I'm like, just punish me. That was part of the punishment. Why do you drag this out? This isn't Kuwait.
Quick and swift.
How about for you, Roxanne?
I was sitting here thinking about this, and I was like, I hope they talk longer because I'm trying to come up with something in my brain about what I would say. But something that I loathe about church, or like in general?
Not just something your parents did to you growing up.
Did to me growing up? Well, that's a different question.
Related to Jesus.
Related to Jesus. Okay. At
the time it didn't make sense, but now it's like that was formative to who I am. And it's okay if you don't have an answer. I don't want to force it.
Yeah. No. It's loathed. I don't know. We didn't really do anything that I loathed, but there is one thing that my mom especially, and she was very adamant, that we, you say the blessing before Thanksgiving, and you do the whole thankful thing around the table, and then of course you always feel obligated to say, I'm thankful for my family, I'm thankful for Jesus, those types of things. And then when you're a kid, you just want to eat because you're hungry because you've been smelling this food all day long. And so I did kind of think. And then we had, there's like 5 people in our family, so it wasn't very many people, but sometimes some people would kind of talk for longer than others, and I'm like, you say one thing and you move on, and so I am hungry, I'm ready to eat. And so I think that's one of the things, I don't know that I loathed it, but it was one of those things that I was like, this is kind of cheesy, this is kind of weird. But as I grew up, it was, and especially, as we got older, we started doing our own thing, and sometimes it wasn't as easy for everybody to come together, so that when we were able to finally come together and still be able to say what we're thankful for, it kind of meant more as I got older. When I was younger, I just wanted to eat, but when I was older, I was like, okay, I can understand why we're doing this.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense. What, okay, so mini sermon. One of the observations that I've made for years is that, and it puts me in a really weird spot, because I find myself having conversations over coffee, over lunch, things like that, with people where, from my opinion, part of the rub is you don't have community, and you don't have community around your area because you're here once a month or once every 6 weeks. And the tricky thing, of course, is the last thing I want to do is create a church culture that in any way shames or ridicules anyone. Like we've always said, we want this to be a safe place. We're not going to, once a month is the new every week, and we're not. It's just a tricky thing to talk about. It's also tricky because, quite frankly, I've been paid to be at church since I was 20 years old, so I don't really even have a leg to stand on. But all that being said, one of the observations I've made is people who are regular, and that has nothing to do with your bowels, that they have certain advantages over people, or at least there's certain benefits. Maybe advantages is not the best choice of words. So there's been a couple of occasions where we've actually started some video project stuff where I wanted to interview people and ask them this question, and it just never really, we kind of cut it, and it didn't really work. It felt a little forced. And then what happened in this process is we put together these 9 names and got the confirmations from the people who were willing to do this. And only after the fact did I realize all 9 of you, these 3 and the other 3 at the 10 and the other 3 at the 8:30, actually fall into that category of people, whether serving or not, are here far more often than not. So, loaded question, but really honest question is, as you guys assess the value, because Sunday's 50% of the reason people live in Helena, right? Like, we're a recreational mecca. There's lots of things to do. There's a cost of volunteering on Sundays. There's a cost of attending on Sundays. For you, what has been the value of being here? Anybody can go first.
Bear with me a second here, Adam. So imagine a mansion, beautiful, ornate. It's pouring rain outside or whatever. It's storming outside. You go inside. There's a huge entryway, a fireplace going. Everything's ornate and immaculate. And you go down a hallway, and the hallway is just like everything else in the mansion. Beautiful. You go to open a door, and the door doesn't open. And you realize that behind each of those doors is something important: wisdom, love, financial, a future. But you can't open any of them. I feel like coming to church is the keys to those doors. And in this giant mansion, every time you come to a Sunday, you get a key to another door. And you gain knowledge, or you gain something important to your life.
Wow.
And without coming, you don't ever open those doors. And you never know what's behind that door.
Wow.
So there's huge value to coming every Sunday.
Thanks.
I feel like Jeff could just drop the mic and walk off the stage now, because that was very profound metaphor. I loved it. That was great. So I was hard to follow that, but one of the reasons why I think I value coming to church on Sunday so much is, and I think I said it before, is I feel like my soul is fed when I come to church and I'm around people who are, just trying to do life, and we're just trying to do life together. And it's the culture of, no matter what walk of life you're coming from, what side of the, like you said, what side of the aisle you're on, or what your status is, or whatever. We're all here together. We're all here for the, for me, it's for, trying to find the common good in us all, and trying to emulate what Jesus would want us to do, and having, that relationships with people, because Jesus valued relationships, and he valued knowing people, loving people. And I feel like coming to church on Sunday, you cultivate relationships and you meet people, and I've met so many people that I would not otherwise meet. And then especially serving, I meet somebody new every time I serve. I mean, I've done wood splitting 2-3 years in a row, and I've always met somebody new. Every time I teach large group, there might be a new kid, there's a new parent, there's always somebody new that I'm meeting. And then it's just nice to have those connections. And it's just, it's one little tangible thing that I can do on Sunday. And then there's something that I try to take away from that I can carry through the rest of the week, or the rest of, a month, or whatever, depending on what it is. And then if it's something that I've learned, and then I try to see if that's something that I can pass on to others that might be in my path. And so it's just kind of and I'll say this, on days when I can't come, either like not feeling well or out of town, that week, I'm like, something's missing. Like, I miss not coming for whatever reason. And so if I don't make it to church for whatever reason, I feel like I kind of like, I get through the week, and I just feel like something's missing the rest of the week if I don't make it. So I just know that getting here and seeing everybody and getting some love and getting to see people and stuff like that is always helpful.
I feel kind of hypocritical because I haven't been here the last 2 weeks.
And we count, like we know.
Yeah,
I know. They keep track.
Score sheets out. No, so, yeah, I think just coming to church refuels me for the rest of the week, and gives me some things to think about and pray about. And also just seeing, I've met most of my best friends here. I met my husband here. So
In his minivan.
In his minivan, yeah. Rest in peace.
Which is its own inside joke. So I got to tell this joke. But I can't tell the joke. There's a funny backstory, though, where her father-in-law, and I just got to say this, Mikey drove off, because Mikey's been around, he moved here with us, helped start this place. He drove off one Sunday in his minivan, and somebody made some snide comment or something. And then Daryl, her dad, made a comment about he's going to be single forever driving a minivan. and then he met and married his daughter.
That's funny.
It's okay if you drive a minivan. I drove one, too, for a long time.
It's called the man van.
The man,
Man
yeah, you have
van.
a man
The
van.
man
Yeah,
van.
yeah. Okay, so one word. I'm going to tweak this just a little bit, because I know that we have people in our lives who maybe have a different view of Jesus, or tragically a misunderstanding of Jesus. If there was one word that you feel like best describes, if there was a word that you could redefine for somebody estranged from Jesus that you love, that you feel like they have wrong and is a big block between them and Jesus, what would that word be?
Change.
Change.
I was going to say hope, but I'm not sure if that exactly fits. But
I would say probably grace. I think sometimes grace is misunderstood by people who are estranged from Jesus, in my experience anyway. So.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for keeping it real. Part of, for all of us, for me, part of the win of all of this is that, again, we're a community together. Many of you would call yourselves followers of Jesus, some not. That's okay as well. But part of what I wanted to see is that this whole process, if we're not careful, who is it? Richard Rohr, who says that church, if we're not careful, becomes, it's less about transformation and it's more about tribe. And part of what I want us to see is that because of life stories and life circumstances, that it's okay to be a part of a community of faith and yet not have these nice, clean, homogenous answers to all of the questions and problems, and yet it doesn't change the fact that we get to do this together. And frankly, for those of you who, you're wanting to get connected, then I think there's some good examples as to how you do that around here. But I also just want to continue to say that we very purposely have created a community where it's okay to hide. Lots of people work really hard so that other people can sit in the back row for multiple years before getting involved, and we embrace all of that, and that's a very intentional thing on our end. So let me pray, and we'll wrap it up. Lord, thanks for the faith stories of Jeff and Roxanne and Kelsey, and thanks for their families and the real positive example that they are of coming from church backgrounds, and that wasn't necessarily intentional in the construction of this, but that in a world where there's just angry people everywhere about their church upbringing, it's pretty awesome to see people who are grateful for theirs, imperfect though they all are. Thanks, Lord, for this thing that you're doing in Helena and our opportunity to be a part of it. We recognize that it's yours, not ours, that we are stewards, and ask that you'd give us attentive ears and eyes to be intentional with the opportunities you're giving us. We love you, Jesus. Amen.
If you would like to engage further with Narrate Church, you can find contact information online, www.narratechurch.org. We would love to hear from you.